Mm-hmm.
How often did you see your neighbors? How often did you see the neighbors?
Oh,
I think they were Russian. They were hard to communicate.
you saw the Russian kids as we walked together on the way to school, but otherwise no. And the few neighbor friends that I remember we have in contact with was the Winkler family, which lived several miles to the west of us, and the Flemmer family, which lived several miles to the southeast, and the Volz family, which lived to the north and east. We saw those only a few times a year.
So you don't think your dad knew how to celebrate?
He probably he didn't know how to lead our family in a celebration, but he probably, when he was a boy living with his parents, they probably had celebrations, but I never heard him talk about it.
What was he like? Like, what was his personality like?
Mostly quiet. Yeah. He was, most of the thing we were, I think the word is poverty stricken, but I didn't know the word poverty till many years later.
So when you were young, you didn't know that you...
No, we had food on the table, but it was during the Depression, and Dad did not go away to work. He was able to tend the fields and make a crop, and there were, for a while during the Depression, he had road maintenance crew with the highway department, and he'd come home with a horse-drawn road grader.
Wow.
One summer, but that was only one summer that I remember.
So that was his job, and he would bring
Yeah.
the grader home at night.
Yeah,
And it was pulled by a horse.
well,
Was it one of his horses, or...
yeah, it was one of Dad's teams,
Wow.
and it was, and beyond that, I really,
What was your dad's name?
Andrew,
Andrew?
Oh, I like that name.
yep. I don't remember him having a middle name,
Huh.
just Andrew Oster. And
Do you ever remember him, like, being happy or enjoying himself?
there were a few occasions when he would act happy. On one occasion, I think when my sister got married or something, Dad in the family living room would dance a little bit with my younger sister.
Really?
How many siblings did you have?
There were 5 of us
And where were you in the lineup?
in the middle.
In the middle.
Yeah.
So you had 2 sisters. How many sisters did you have? How many sisters?
2.
And 2 brothers?
Yes.
Wow.
Did your dad, did he own the farm or was he leasing it?
I'm not clear on the details. I think the farm was supposed to be my mother's inheritance from her father. The farm had been built and settled by my mother's father, and
So your grandparents on your mom's side,
yeah,
do you remember them at all?
I knew Grandfather Conrad, but I never met his wife. And I think it's a case of during the Depression that, let's see, just hearing Mother talk, for a time when I was very young, too young to remember, we lived on a farm that was owned or operated by my mother's brother, and for a time that I'm not aware of, we lived in the town of Beulah, and then I must have been possibly just old enough to vaguely remember us living on the farm. I never living beyond. I don't have any memory of the time before we moved to the farm.
Mm-hmm.
But for the farm had been, I think, was owned by my mother's father, Grandpa Conrad, and during 1940 or 41, he lived with us for a while, and I don't know the financial details, but we had an auction sale of Dad's some of our household goods and the few cows that Dad had, and we came west and an old Dodge sedan towing an overloaded trailer.
And that's when you moved to Olympia?
Yeah.
Yeah. Roughly how old were you then?
9.5, I think.
9.5.
In the late 1941, I think, I was born in 1932, so I was 9.5 years old when we had to leave the farm.
Do you remember at all, were you aware of World War II? Did the adults...
Only as what was reported in the news and some talk from visitors, but beyond that, it was so far beyond my level that I never had no understanding of it.
So at 9.5 or 10, anywhere in that area, do you remember any games or toys, or did you remember playing at all?
There was a game, hide and seek, I think.
Hide and seek?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we had a checkerboard, but I'm really not sure of it.
Well, you used to play checkers with David
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hide and seek and checkers.
Yeah.
But I guess it would have been really unusual to actually have some toys.
Yeah. Well, in our situation, we couldn't afford it.
Right.
I think it stressed Dad out to keep food on the table.
Right. Do you feel like there was always enough food, or do you remember sometimes that there actually wasn't enough?
there was, we had chickens, and Dad would sometimes butcher a chicken. We had chickens and eggs. Dad would butcher a chicken, and there might have been one occasion that he butchered a steer for beef, but mostly there's a lot of times when supper was a dish of mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
And breakfast was usually oatmeal.
Which you still like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was nourishing.
Yes, it is. Do you think of all of that? Do you think of it as hard, or was it just normal for you? And it was
Well, in our situation, it's just the way life was. And clothing was bib overalls, and Mom had a gasoline-powered washing machine.
gasoline.
And a washing machine with a gasoline engine to drive it.
Ah,
Oh my
Electricity was,
I've never
electricity
heard of
was
this.
something that occurred in the town. No,
For real.
for real. And there were occasions we would drive over to visit a friend of the family, Glenn Volz, and on one occasion, I think he had gasoline-powered electricity generator, and to have electric lights in the house, in the kitchen.
Wow.
But milked the cows by hand, and
Sure.
the milk was poured into a tank on top of a separator and turned the crank by hand to stir out the cream. Two spouts coming out, one for skim milk and one for cream.
My daddy had one of those.
Really?
Yeah. Something big thing that went around like this, and he
Yeah.
was the power that turned it. Cream.
So how did it work? The cream.
The cream is heavier.
So the cream
So
went
it
to the
went out to the
bottom.
edge.
The cream came out cream
Yeah.
came out the top.
The edge somewhere, yeah.
Yeah.
It's heavier. And skim milk
And-
was
And butter. We put the cream in a crock with wooden paddles, and we turn the crank to stir up the cream to make butter.
Wow.
But electricity was something in the city.
So what was it like? I mean, you grew up in this situation where you had the minimum kind of to get by. What was it like when you went to college and got your first job and you were getting your own paycheck?
Totally overwhelming.
Was it overwhelming?
Yeah.
Did it seem like a lot of money
yeah.
to you?
There's yeah, it did. And particularly my first couple of jobs, I was still living with the parents and using part of my pay to support the family. And let's see, one of my first jobs working, let's see, with a highway department surveying crew, living in a motel many miles from home, and doing surveying work along the highway. And one of my summer jobs, I think it was maybe the second year of college, I got work with Simpson Logging Company and lived in the logging camp for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And again, used part of my pay to help support the family.
Mm-hmm. So
Wow.
those paychecks seemed like a lot of money. If you
It did to me.
Yeah.
And again, one of my first jobs as a day laborer seemed like $14 an hour was a really good wage.
That was a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's not bad
That's not bad
for
now.
David and
I
Dylan,
know.
right? Dylan
That's
doesn't make that much.
There again, I'm not sure I'm remembering the details correctly, but
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that would have been a lot of money back then.
So when did you buy the property on? Did you buy you have two parcels, right?
yeah,
Did you buy them at the same time, or did you buy them
separately.
separately?
But there again, got out of college, working with a surveying party. Part of my time was in Eastern Oregon. Living away from home in motel rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, then
You went to Alaska?
yeah. Let's see. I lived in La Grande, I think, for 3 years, and then in 1960, working for the Bureau of Public Roads, I took a transfer and a promotion to move to Alaska, and I had signed up for a 2-year hitch. At the end of 1 year, they transferred me back out. And the boss never did tell me whether he figured I wasn't up to the job there or what. But
They sent
But-
Eugene to
anyhow,
Eugene.
it was a good move from Alaska. They moved me to Eugene, and I worked in Eugene for 3 years, and then they moved me up to the Portland office to spend part of the time in the office and part on field trip. I'm traveling around measuring stream flow.
So going to Alaska must have been huge. I mean, you had never gone that distance, had you?
The thing, I had lived, I think, 3 or 4 years in La Grande. By that time, I had bought a car, and I bought a new car so I could drive the highway to Alaska.
Wow. Did you really drive from? You
You
drove
drove
up
to
through Canada?
Alaska?
From Oregon,
I didn't know that.
and I drove up the Alaska highway.
Oh
what
my.
kind of car?
I think it was a 1960 Rambler sedan, or maybe it was maybe it was a '58 Rambler station wagon. But
That you bought new.
yeah,
Wow. That must have been a big deal to
for
buy
me,
a new car.
For me, it was.
And driving it to Alaska would be a big deal too.
Yeah.
Wow.
What'd your mother think of that?
She said, "My gosh, why do you want to go way out in that part of the world for?" She thought it was going out to an uninhabited wilderness.
Yeah.
Well, pretty much was.
So do you remember how much the Rambler was?
I think maybe $2,000.
That must have seemed like
That is a big chunk
a
of money.
big chunk of money. Wow. And you drove. How did the trip go?
Uneventful. I drove maybe 300 miles a day, then find a room to spend the night.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal to drive to Alaska today.
Yeah.
I'd like to.
What time of year was it? What time of year did you drive up there?
In the summer,
In the summer, yeah. I would imagine there's not a big window. And then it was after you moved to Portland that you bought the place in Scappoose?
yes. And I moved to Portland, and well, from Alaska, they had sent me down to Eugene. I lived 3 years in Eugene. Then the job moved me up to Portland, and for a few months I had an apartment in Portland, and then I was looking around for property, and I found this place near Scappoose, property, and bought a 30-foot house trailer and lived in that for 3 or 4 years while I had a cabin built.
You were really adventuresome. Going to Alaska, buying a Rambler, buying property, buying a trailer, building your own cabin.
The road to Alaska, I thought, as roads go, I thought it was good. But part of it was paved, and part of it was just well-graded gravel.
After you've been to Iowa, that one would be good.
Well, if the Rambler must have been, did it have positive traction, or was it a single-wheel drive?
A two-wheel drive.
It was two-wheel drive. Wow.
We had a Rambler that was
They
a
carried the
company car.
tire chains in the back.
Did you? You did? Yeah. Of course, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really courageous. That's a big deal.
For me, it was something different, something unusual.
Well, and then sometimes he'd
I had,
shimmy out over the river.
Yeah.
take
Those.
that.
Yeah.
I had worked, before I went to Alaska, I had worked 3 years in eastern Oregon, traveling over roughly 1/3 of the state on the job, and getting into some pretty isolated areas. And
Are there any pictures of you on those zip lines going out over the river, stream gauging?
no,
No.
and traveling alone, I didn't
Yeah.
No
have
selfies.
anyone to take pictures of me.
Yeah.
But it was a tramway cable across the river, and
Are they still using those? The-
they are still being used.
oh yeah, you could see
It's
one.
where right across the river and lower a sounding weight into the water, and
So,
a 50-pound sounding weight shaped like a bomb, and a current meter above that, and you count of the revolutions of the meter, and
so if I was to do that today, that would scare me.
yeah.
Were you scared, or?
Well, maybe the first couple of trips I was out with another man who was showing me how, and after that I was on my own.
Do you remember being scared, or was it like, I'm good, this is okay?
It was part of the job. But up in Alaska, ride tramway cable, I think a 600-foot span, bank to bank, over in an isolated area over the Copper River.
Oh, that's the one that has the
So
good salmon.
just for comparison, our zip line's
Yeah.
200 feet. So that was 3 times as long as our zip line.
Lower a 50-pound sounding weight into the water,
Oh, my
and
goodness.
And you're
the current
strapped,
swift enough to carry it down.
are you strapped in a harness essentially on a pulley?
No, I was sitting in a wood frame cable